Baseball fans, you're watching On Deck with Tyler Redmond.
Is the mic on? There we go. Hey everybody, thank you for tuning in tonight. Really do appreciate it. While you're here, do us a favor, like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications so that you can stay up to date with everything going on here at On Deck and of course with your Atlanta Braves. And let's talk about those Atlanta Braves for a second because the first half of the season is over. The All-Star game and all its festivities have come and gone, and we have around 65 games left, 64 games left of the season. It's the final stretch of the year. The trade deadline is looming. We got a lot to talk about tonight, but I wanted to talk first about the situation in the National League East, right? And we can look towards the first quote-unquote half of the season, even though it's definitely more than half. We can look at that. We can look at, all of where we are right now, but my takeaways from the first half are pretty simple, right? It's a matter of what the Braves are doing versus what the Phillies are doing. Because when you look at what the Phillies have done this year, they have been really good so far this year, no doubt about that. But the Braves have kept pace. When you look at the standings, yes, the Braves are 8.5 games back. As unfortunate as that may be, they've been able to keep pace. They have the third best record in all of the National League. They have played very well through injuries. There's a lot of positives to take away from it. And really, because there has been so many positives, and frankly, because of the history of the Braves trade deadline and the history of what they've been able to do in the later halves of seasons, I'm looking at you 2022, there's been this growing anticipation among Braves fans for the trade deadline. We all remember in 2021 that, Ronald Acuna goes down and towards the end of the first half, all of a sudden Braves signed Jock Peterson. And then come the trade deadline, frankly, all hell breaks loose. And we get Jorge Soler, Eddie Rosario, all these guys to come in and benefit the team. And honestly, the team did not look anything like it did on opening day. And a lot of folks are thinking, hey, maybe there's something to that for 2024. And if that's the case, I think we're in for a lot of fun come July 30th and the trade deadline. But something that has to be talked about before we can talk about any kind of trades or any kind of trade deadline or whatever the case may be, you have to talk about what is the Braves' goal, right? Because there's been a lot of talk about this from you guys, from a lot of other folks. Is it the Braves are going to try to win the division? Are they going to try to come back, march back those 8.5 games and win the National League East for the 7th consecutive year? Or are they just going to say, the Phillies might have it this year. We're going to walk away. We're going to plan for the postseason. We're going to prepare for the postseason. And hopefully we get on a hot stretch come late September, early October. And those are two different things. And to be honest with you, I think the trade deadline is going to be a direct reflection of whatever the Braves are planning to do, right? If they go all out for the trade deadline, I think they're planning on trying to win the division because you got to have guys that are going to help you cover this final stretch. And right now you are down Tyler Matzik. More notably, you were down Michael Harris, and the timetable for him is still a little unclear. We don't know when he's going to be back. The Braves seem to be in the market for an outfielder at minimum come the trade deadline. I think, personally, the Double-A is going to be a lot more active than a lot of people give him credit for because when I look at this team, I see a lot of little things that could be improved, right? The offense being the biggest of those. But with Michael Harris out, with Ronald Acuna out, with Spencer Strider out, you have a lot of empty spots or a lot of spots that frankly could use a boost, right? And I mentioned the lineup. When you look at our lineup right now, it's not that it's bad, right? It's really not. It's just not as good as we're accustomed to. Top to bottom, this lineup would have been great had Ronald Acuna been healthy, had Michael Harris been healthy. Because frankly, if that were the case, we would not be talking about is Orlando Arcia good enough to be on this team at this point in the year. We just wouldn't be. We'd be happy with solid defense because frankly, when the Braves signed him to a 3-year deal, that's what we expected. What he did in 2023 was gravy. It was not necessarily something that we thought was going to happen, but we were thrilled that it did. He was able to be an all-star last year. But can the Braves actually come back and win the division this year? I believe so. I've said on this channel before that I thought that their path to winning the division this year would be in head-to-head matchups. So far this year, there have been 6 games between the Braves and the Phillies, 3 on the road for Atlanta and 3 at home for Atlanta. And so far, the Braves have taken 4 out of those 6. Now, that's not to say that that's how the rest of this year is going to go. You can look at the last series and point out that all of Bryce Harper, Kyle Schwarber, and JT Realmuto were absent in that series, and that's a fair criticism or fair point to make. But the Braves have also been down a lot themselves so far this year. So, all in all, when I look at where we are in the division against the Phillies, it's going to be talked about to the end of the year. I think the Braves are closer than they may appear to the Phillies. I really do. 8.5 games is a tall task. We've seen this team, have beat a tall task before. Now, I will say this, it's getting late, and the Braves may not win the division this year, and I can fully accept that. What I can't accept is this idea of, well, forget it, let's just focus on the postseason. I'm not going for that, and I'll tell you why I'm not going for that. Number one, the postseason's not a guarantee, right? You can't just hope for the best and hope that you're a good team after you qualify for the wild card. Qualifying for the wild card is not the easiest thing in the world to do either. It's easier this year and last year because of the expanded playoffs, but it's not a guarantee for the Braves. It's really not. If they continue on this path, someone else may catch fire and eliminate them from the postseason. And I think we all can agree that that's the last thing we want to happen. So winning the division is really the only surefire way to make it to the postseason. And when I look at where we are right now with the Phillies, you can determine whether or not it's an advantage or a disadvantage to have the wild card series or not. The Braves want to win the division. They have made that abundantly clear. How many times have we heard Brian Snicker comment on, we're here to win the division? That is not something that we've lost. And I fully believe that is the goal still. And a lot of folks are going to say, well, hey, Tyler, I mean, after the past 2 years against the Phillies, wouldn't you like to try a wild card series? To be honest with you, personally, yes. I'd like to see the Braves in a wild card series because I would take their chances over just about anybody. But at the same time, I don't want them limping into the wild card series. I want them playing their best ball. The only way they play their best ball going into that series is if they're on a trail to win the division, right? Because if they're going in and they're 10 games back and it's, okay, well, we're just going to rest up. I don't want that team walking in to play the wild card series. I want the team that's on fire and playing well, because in that case, what's the difference from going to the wild card series versus what we did last year, right? You want the team playing their best ball at the end of the year. The only way that happens is if they get on a stretch going forward. Now, the other component of it is, what do they do at the trade deadline? I said earlier that I think this team could look vastly different after the trade deadline, depending on what moves the Braves make. And I think that there's a lot of possibilities. We've seen a lot of possibilities. We've talked about a lot of possibilities here at On Deck, but we've also seen them from different experts across Major League Baseball. Ken Rosenthal has commented on it. I know Jim Bowden has commented on it. There's guys out there. Outfielders are kind of the main ones that everybody's talking about. That's what we're going to talk about tonight. But I think that there's more opportunities to trade for other guys. I've said on this channel multiple times that I thought starting pitching has got to be a topic of conversation, right? When you look at our starting rotation right now, yes, we had 3 guys that made it to the All-Star game, in Reynaldo Lopez, Chris Sale, and Max Fried. They've all been great. Charlie Morton has been very good this year, right? Outside of the All-Stars, but he's still been very good, especially for knocking on 40 years old. But that 5th spot's still a little rocky. And beyond that, when you look to the future, you know that Charlie Morton could be retiring. Max Fried could be leaving Atlanta. No matter what he says, at the end of the day, his free agency's up. And somebody's got to pay him, and it may or may not be Atlanta. We'll see. But right now, I still think starting rotation could be addressed if you want to ensure your team for the end of the year. I think starting pitcher has to be addressed. And there's guys out there that I don't think would cost that much to get. But when you look at where the Braves are right now, if you look at the division, it's clear that the Phillies are in the driver's seat. That is clear. They've been the best team in baseball this year, undoubtedly. Credit where credit is due. They have been the best team, certainly in the National League so far this year. But I would also say this. So were the Braves in 2023, and we all saw how that ended. So if you're counting the Braves out, you're mistaken. This is a long ways to go. We have another 64 games left or something like that to play just in the regular season. And a lot of you guys, when it comes to this team, you know, because they're not what they were in 2023, I've seen this just distaste for what the Braves are in 2024. This team is still a very good team. They have a lot of promise, a lot of potential, and let's say they don't do a lot at the trade deadline, starting pitching-wise specifically. They still have a lot of talent. Spencer Schwellenbach has been really good in his recent appearances. A.J. Smith-Shawver is on the road back, and I expect him to be on fire hopefully when he gets back. So there's still some competition for that fifth spot, but there's also a lot of guys that could be traded for a fifth starter as well. So a lot to talk about. When we get back, we're going to talk about the trade deadline and kind of what I think the Braves will do. We're going to look at some options that have been out there, some guys that are likely to move, and we're going to talk about them. So when we get back, we talk about the trade deadline. Stay with us. And guys, if you're out there and you have not liked the video, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell for notifications so that you can stay up to date with everything going on here at On Deck and, of course, with your Atlanta Braves.
Are you ready to save big on a new GMC?
At Glenn Smith GMC in Opelika, you can own one of the best-selling vehicles in the USA. The GMC Sierra pickup is discounted up to $14,500 off. The roomy and comfortable GMC Terrains are up to $8,250 off. And the GMC Acadias with 3 spacious rows and seating for 7, discounted up to $8,000 off. At Glenn Smith GMC in Opelika,
Get ready to smile. Are you ready to save big on a new Chevrolet?
make your way to Glenn Smith Chevrolet. Choose America's #1 compact SUV, the Chevy Equinox, discounted up to $6,500 off. The powerful Chevy Silverados are up to $13,750 off. And the big Chevy Silverado 2500 HTs are discounted up to $6,000 off. Glenn Smith Chevrolet in Opelika.
Get ready to smile.
And just a reminder that On Deck is presented by Glenn Smith Chevrolet GMC in Opelika. Go over there, they'll get you ready to smile. Again, thank you for being here tonight. Really do appreciate it. Thank you for being a part of On Deck, the community here, and just the Braves fandom that we have. I'm really happy with what we've been able to do so far this year. You guys have been great at growing the channel. I hope that you'll continue to help us do that. Hope that you'll continue to be here. Typically, we're here on Sunday nights. I'm fully aware. We were going to do it Sunday night. Something got in the way of that. We were going to do it Monday night. And then, the Home Run Derby's tonight. Why would we do a live stream during the Home Run Derby? So then we had the All-Star game, and now here we are. Happy to be here tonight. Happy you're with us. And we have a lot to talk about. We're going to talk about the trade deadline. We've already kind of been getting in on it. The Braves have made one substantial trade, I would say, already this year for Eddie Rosario. And I thought that was a solid trade. The Braves needed a guy to give left-handed at-bats because Adam Duvall, frankly, was unable to do that. And frankly, he struggled mightily against righties. So I thought the Eddie deal was good, not to mention it's a familiar face, a beloved face for Atlanta, and it's something to in 21 when we went and got Jock Peterson. It was a shot in the arm, maybe not to that level, but it was something to say, hey, we're not walking away yet. We're going to do something here. And it wouldn't surprise me if we saw something sooner rather than later happen with Alex Anthopoulos showing everybody, hey, we're still here. We're still making moves to win the division and or potentially win a World Series. I still think that is believable, and I think it's certainly possible. So that said, let's talk about the Major League Baseball trade deadline, because with everything going on right now, the one focus we have that is universal is outfielder, right? When Ronald Acuna Jr. went down, all conversations about starting pitcher, bullpen, utility player, those went away, and the focus became outfield. And I'll tell you that it wasn't my first focus this year, but you react to injuries and you adjust to them. And the current crop of outfielder consists of Jared Kelenic, Adam Duvall, Eddie Rosario, and Eli White. On any given day, on your best day, you have Jared Kelenic in leadoff, Duvall hitting around sixth, Rosario following suit, and Eli White coming off the bench. Now, that said, it could certainly improve. I think we all appreciate all of those guys, especially Kelenic, Duvall, and Rosario, for what they're able to do, but their numbers have not been there, specifically with Duvall and Rosario. The platooning of Duvall and Rosario, I think, would improve the team dramatically if you can find a solid center fielder or left fielder or whatever the case may be to fill the role there and put one of those guys on the bench any given day, depending on who's starting. Platooning those guys, I think, would help a lot, specifically because of what we see in Duvall against righties. I would love Eddie Rosario to take the majority of those at bats. I don't see Kelenic platooning anywhere. I think he is a everyday guy, especially with what he's done in the latter couple of months of the first half, and especially what he's done in the leadoff spot. I really like what he's been able to do. But the platoon of Eddie Rosario and Adam Duvall is very interesting to me. There's still a large void in center field with Michael Harris out. There's no denying that. Again, his timetable is unclear. So with that, who will the Braves trade for? Who will they go and pick up? Jim Bowden discussed this, and he mentioned many of the guys that we have brought up here in the past. Stating, quote, "The Braves are focused on improving their outfield room and have been since Ronald Acuna Jr. suffered a season-ending knee injury. Possible outfield trade targets include Jazz Chisholm Jr., Taylor Ward, Randy Arozarena, and Tommy Pham of the White Sox." I think the list is a little longer than that, but let's talk about those guys specifically really quickly. Jazz Chisholm, guy who over the years has said multiple times that he'd love to play in the Braves ballpark, which is very interesting. Jazz Chisholm is an exciting player. That's why he was on the cover of MLB The Show a couple of years ago. He is a name value guy. Now, on the field over the years, he hasn't quite hit the marks. There's no denying that. So far this season, he's got a .249 batting average, 12 homers, .321 on base percentage, and a .407 slug. It's not bad numbers at all. In fact, I think they're pretty good numbers, but I don't know that it's what the Braves are looking for, right? The one thing that he does give you is the ability to play not only outfield, but also infield. A lot of guys, especially a lot of you guys, have pointed out the weaknesses of Orlando Arcia at the plate. Jazz Chisholm would give you the ability to plug and play not only in the outfield, but also at the shortstop position. So I find that interesting. He's primarily outfield and second base, but he does have some ability to play shortstop, although personally, I don't think that's where his best talents are. I think he is either an outfielder or a second baseman. So that said, if he can't play shortstop, the versatility goes away. But if he can, that does give you one other option out there. I don't hate the move. He's locked up for a long time, under team control anyway for a long time. He's arbitration eligible next year, and he's a free agent in 27. Being arbitration eligible may make the Marlins go ahead and cash out on Jazz Chisholm while they can. We've already seen the Marlins move Luis Arias and others so far this year. They're expected to move many, many more. Their record is garbage right now. They are, I believe, they're way last in the National League East. So they're going to move some pieces. I expect Jazz Chisholm to be one of them. And it would not surprise me if it's to the Braves. And a lot of you may be saying, well, Tyler, it's a division rival. They're not going to trade it. Just remember, they traded us Adam Duvall back in 2021. So it's not impossible. I don't know that I love the move, but I don't hate the move of Jazz Chisholm to the Braves. So we'll see what happens. Again, an exciting player, a player that would give you an option in the outfield and the infield if needed. He's a good hitter. And to be honest with you, the other component of Jazz Chisholm is if you get him out of Miami and you get him on a team that frankly has a chance to win something, that's a guy that may wake up and smell the roses and may be you've heard it before, a change of scenery situation. And I think that could be the case wherever Jazz Chisholm goes, but especially if he goes somewhere like Atlanta, which he has already documented saying he'd love to play for those fans. He'd love to play for that in that ballpark. And who could blame him, really? So the second guy we want to talk about tonight is another guy that we have mentioned before of the Los Angeles Angels, Taylor Ward. This is a name that I have pointed to quite a few times this year as a potential trade piece. Taylor Ward this year has a 228 average, 14 homers, 312 on base, and a 401 slug. He would be a perfect fit, in my opinion, in the outfield for the Braves. I think he's got solid defense. He's got a good bat. He has power if needed. A lot of folks are saying, Tyler, we don't need power. We need guys that get on base. I 110% agree. He's got a 312 on base, 228 average. It's better than what you would get out of a replacement level player. I think he'd be very affordable, frankly, because of what team he is coming from. Just like Jazz, he is arbitration eligible this coming up year, and he is a free agent 27. So you'd also have a couple of years control. And the other component of this that you have to start thinking about is, what if Ronald Acuna comes back and he is unable to play the field? You have to start thinking about it. What if he's a DH? And maybe that's why they haven't locked up Ozuna just yet. So there's a lot of things to think about. Taylor Ward would give you at least a couple more years of control, and maybe it's you pick Taylor Ward over Kelnick or whatever. You'd have some options there if need be. I'm not saying that it's going to happen. I'm just thinking out loud here. Another option I wanted to talk about, Randy Arozarena. This is one more mentioned by Jim Bowden. Randy, we all know who Randy Arozarena is. He really picked up a lot of attention a few postseasons ago with the Rays when they made it to the World Series. He was a breakout star as a rookie. So far this year, though, 202 batting average, 12 homers, 309 on base percentage, and a 362 slug. He's arbitration eligible in 2025, this coming up year, and he's a free agent in 2027, just like the two guys that we just mentioned. Again, I like Randy Arozarena. I think he's a good ball player. Just like Jazz, I think a change of scenery could only help him. And really, that goes for a lot of these guys, right? If you're playing for the Marlins or if you're playing for the Angels, who have no light at the end of the tunnel, right? No chance of winning their division, no chance of competing in a postseason unless they're traded. Sometimes that's the best thing for them. And maybe they'll, you bring a guy like Randy in who is a veteran and can play at a high rate. Maybe you turn a corner with him and you see improvements simply because of where he's playing at. And a lot of people shake their head at that. There's a lot of truth to it too. Jesse Chavez is a great example every time he plays in Atlanta, right? You see that where guy finds the ability to be comfortable. Look at Chris Sale, right? Chris Sale talked the other day about all the pressure he had on him playing in Boston because he signed a big, heavy contract and he won a World Series with that team and he felt like he had to do more. In Atlanta, that pressure is kind of off and he's able to be himself. And maybe, just maybe, Randy Arozarena can, be the Randy that we've seen before with a chance to win. We'll see. One other guy we got to talk about, Tommy Pham. This is the last on the list of Jim Bowden's picks for possible additions for outfielders and the Atlanta Braves. Here's the thing, right? Tommy Pham was signed this year purely to be traded. Make no mistake. The White Sox knew going in this year that Tommy Pham would not be on the roster beyond July 30th. Right? He's got a 264 average, 4 homers this year, which is a down year for him in terms of homers, 339 on base percentage, and 368 slug. Here's the thing. What he's lacking in homers, he does have in batting average. He does have it on base and slug. So I can live without the homers. I don't think the Braves need any help with that. Tommy Pham is not the perfect solution, but he is a good temporary solution if the Braves want to go that way. He is a free agent at the end of this year, right? You only commit to him for this year. But because he's on the White Sox, hear me out, because he's on the White Sox, they're going to try to maximize his value. They're going to try to get as many prospects and as many things in return they can get. And it may be some guys that, hey, we're going to trade you 8 guys because we don't, they're not high-ranked prospects, but they're going to get a good package for Tommy Pham, because at the end of the day, Tommy Pham has proven before that he can and will perform when he's healthy and when he's on his game. So he's a veteran player. He's not at the top of my list by any means, but I do think that he is an option, especially when you think about the idea of combining him with an Eric Fetty, starting pitcher Eric Fetty, or something of that sort. He could be a cheaper option than some others, including one of his teammates who we're going to talk about right now, Luis Robert Jr. A lot of people are probably looking at this one going, Tyler, really? You think we can do that? Well, let's look at his stats. A 236 average, 11 homers, 313 on base, and a 491 slug. Keep in mind, he's only played 43 games out of the 98 by the White Sox this year. If you do the math, he would be projected to hit about 25 homers on that pace. So all I'm saying is this, Luis Robert, you could potentially get him for less because he's had injuries this year. He is a free agent in 2026. You're not locking him up for quite as long as some of the others. And he's a good player. He's a darn good player, and he could help your offense out tremendously. And I think, when healthy, there's no one better on the White Sox, and they're one of the biggest sellers that baseball is going to have this year. So yes, I think he is attainable for somebody. And for the White Sox, who aren't going to do anything this year, probably not going to do anything next year anyway, they're going to want to maximize his value while he still has a year and a half of control. So he will be traded, I believe, whether it's to Atlanta or not. But I definitely think the Braves have him circled as potential option, which is one that Jim Bowden did not have. And a lot of people aren't looking at. I think Luis Robert Jr. is very likely to be traded. Again, I think the Braves at least have to take him into consideration. So just something to consider. We'll see what happens. One other guy I wanted to talk about is a familiar face to Atlanta Braves fans, and a guy that, frankly, you have brought up so many times in the chat, and that is Kevin Pillar. Kevin Pillar cannot go without being discussed in this. He's had a great 2024. He hit his 10th year in Major League Baseball this year. Happy to see that for him. But he has a 268 average, 7 homers, 331 on base percentage, 463 slug. He's really having a career year. He's known typically as a kind of a utility guy, at least in recent years, but he's a veteran bat. He's a guy that we're familiar with. He's a guy that, frankly, the clubhouse is familiar with, and they like him. I've been in the clubhouse. I've seen how he interacts with these guys. They wanted him back, and the Angels are going to be dealing, no question about that. And Kevin Pillar, I think, will certainly be on the move because this is as high a value as you're going to get out of Kevin Pillar. And if you're the Angels and you don't trade Pillar, you don't need to be running the organization anymore. Granted, I think we could all argue that might be the case anyway. But Kevin Pillar, I think, will be moved. And why not back to where he was at a couple of years ago? Kevin Pillar, I think, could very well find himself in a Braves uniform because that would be the Braves getting some assistance without giving up the farm, right? That the Angels will definitely try to maximize his value, but I don't think it's going to be to the level that some of these others like a Luis Robert or a Randy Arozarena or even a Taylor Ward, his teammate, will give you. So again, Kevin Pillar, I would not be surprised if we saw a rinse and repeat of Eddie Rosario, former Atlanta Brave, who, went to another team and finds his way back to the Braves organization. Would not surprise me at all. Another guy I want to talk about is Miguel Andujar. This is a guy who's been overlooked a bit so far this year. He's a free agent at the end of this year, free agent 2025, just like Tommy Pham. He's got a better batting average than Tommy Pham, a 281 batting average. He's got 3 homers this year, a 306 on base, 381 slug. He plays for the Oakland A's. They're typically overlooked anyway. They've had a couple of good players, though, this year. Miguel Andujar has been one of them. He could give you some outfield help. He could give you a good bat, and he can get on base. Whether he has pop or not is irrelevant here. I think he could be an additional bat that the Braves could be considering. But if we're going to talk about the Oakland A's, there's one guy that you have to talk about, and he is the #1 guy on this list, if you ask me. You're looking for on base, you're looking for power, you're looking for defense. There's one guy that has all 3 of those, and he has some years of control, and that's Brent Rooker. This is a guy who we all need to be aware of. We have talked about this guy a lot on this channel so far this year already. Early on in the season, as soon as Ronald Acuna Jr. got hurt, this was the guy everybody pointed to. Rightfully so. So far, he's got a 291 average, 21 homers. He's on pace for about 30, by the way. 369 on base, 573 slug. This is a guy who very well could find himself out of Oakland this year. I think will. The only thing about him is he hits arbitration this year, which means Oakland was probably going to look at him and go, okay, you're arbitration eligible. Let's maximize your value while you got some years of control. Get prospects in because, frankly, that's Moneyball. That's how the Oakland A's work. He's a free agent in 2028, so just like a Jazz Chisholm, just like a Taylor Ward or Randy Arozarena, he will give you years of control and could give you another option going into next year with the uncertainty of Ronald Acuna, with uncertainty of your depth in general. He could be a good additional piece. And before a lot of you guys, point and say, oh, no, Tyler, that's not going to happen. Matt Olson, Sean Murphy, it could happen. And Alex Anthopoulos has said before that when it comes to trades, it's not always about what does the team need. Sometimes it's about getting good players. And Brent Rooker is a good player, and he's got years of control. And to be honest with you, it wouldn't surprise me if they get him on the plane and he's signing an extension. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm saying it could happen. And how much better would this team get if Brent Rooker took over in right field, Jared Kelenic was in left field, and Michael Harris returned to play center for the rest of this year? I think it could be a lot better if that was the case. Adam Duvall, Eddie Rosario moved to the bench possibly, and you trickle down from there. But I think this team would be drastically better if the Braves somehow got Brent Rooker. It's a tall task. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but I think it very well could happen. The key here, and I think this is the general point I want to make, there are names out there. Something is coming. That's the big story here. It's not so much that, hey, this specific guy would help the Braves. There's a lot of guys that could help the Braves, right? It's all about who Alex Anthopoulos draws up, who costs less, who maximizes the value for the Braves. Not always, hey, this guy, and this guy, that's the perfect combination. And hopefully we will see something, happen. I think we will. And because I think we will have a live show that day. We will be here. I think the trade deadline, what time was that? By the way, the unpaid intern Jonathan Roberson is here. Was it 6 o'clock? We'll probably be live here that day at 5, and we will go as long as you guys carry us. So we'll see what happens, and frankly, as long as the news carries us, which is typically quite a while. So that said, plan for that. Be here. And we are, of course, looking forward to it. The trade deadline, especially when it comes to Alex Anthopoulos, is a big talker every year. And if the Braves don't do anything, that in itself is a big talking point. So we will talk about that that night. So make sure you're here and make sure you're a part of it. We would love to have you. Guys, thank you for being here tonight. We're going to get to your comments here in a few minutes. I promise. We've had a lot to get through. Thank you for watching. Thank you for being here. If you would, though, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell for notifications so that you can stay up to date with everything going on here at On Deck and, of course, with your Atlanta Braves as we gear up for the trade deadline. If you would, do like the video, again, subscribe, and be a part of the On Deck community. When we get back, we talk about the MLB draft. Stay with us.
Are you ready to save big on a new GMC?
At Glenn Smith GMC in Opelika, you can own one of the best-selling vehicles in the USA. The GMC Sierra pickup is discounted up to $14,500 off. The roomy and comfortable GMC Terrains are up to $8,250 off. And the GMC Acadias with 3 spacious rows and seating for 7, discounted up to $8,000 off. At Glenn Smith GMC in Opelika,
Get ready to smile. Are you ready to save big on a new Chevrolet?
make your way to Glenn Smith Chevrolet. Choose America's #1 compact SUV, the Chevy Equinox, discounted up to $6,500 off. The powerful Chevy Silverados are up to $13,750 off. And the big Chevy Silverado 2500 HDs are discounted up to $6,000 off. Glenn Smith Chevrolet in Opelika.
Get ready to smile.
Now, before we get into the comment section and the rest of the show, I wanted to mention this because I had the honor of being there for this. This was this past, I guess, Saturday night. The Major League Baseball draft had its first round 1 and round 2. And I know a lot of you are probably thinking, Tyler, were you at the draft? I was not there. I was not in Texas. I wish I was. But I had the honor of being at a draft party for one of the local kids here around Columbus, really in Harris County or Catala. His name's Cole Mathis. Some of you guys may know who I'm talking about. Cole is a Harris County graduate. Harris County is about 20 minutes from here. His dad taught me history in high school a few years ago. He reached out to me about a year ago. I've been following Cole through his dad's Facebook for, gosh, a decade now probably. And anyway, he reached out to me about a year ago. I was like, Tyler, there's this possibility that Cole could get drafted. He went to the College of Charleston. By the way, Brett Gardner also went to the College of Charleston. But Cole went there, and he developed as a dual threat. He was a great pitcher and a great batter as well. He led the team at one point in ERA as well as multiple offensive stats. So he had a good thing going. He went to the Cape Cod League, came second in MVP voting there to Bazana, the first overall pick. Yeah, that was the guy who beat him out for the MVP. So needless to say, Cole has had a great run so far before his professional career. I'm excited to see his professional career develop, and of course we'll continue to follow it. But I wanted to show you this. This right here is the moment it happened.
54th pick of the 2024 MLB draft, the Chicago Cubs select Cole Mathis.
Great moment there for Cole celebrating with his newlywed wife. Great time to be there. Honored to have been there. Glad I could get this
54th pick of the 2024 MLB draft, the
And
Chicago
all
Cubs.
in all you can ask for is that Cole could continue to develop in his career and can maybe one day make it to the big leagues and make a name for himself there as well. I also wanted to show you this. I interviewed Cole right after. Now you're probably wondering, I didn't mention this. Where did he sign to, Tyler? Where did he get drafted to? He's headed to the Chicago Cubs, and I know we're all Braves fans here, but guys, this kid's coming out of the backyard of the Atlanta Braves, and he's going to be a great talent. So here is his interview in its entirety as hopefully you get to know Cole Mathis. The obvious question, you're now a part of the Chicago Cubs organization. How do you feel?
I mean, I don't even know the words for it. I'm shaking just thinking about it, but it's just exciting to, just go into the next chapter. Really, yeah, I guess that's kind of all it is. But yeah.
I know it's a lot to process in the moment, but you got a lot of family, friends here with you. Talk to me about the moment they called your name, 54th pick overall in the 2024 draft. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, I mean, it means a lot to just have a bunch of guys that grew up with me, watched me, I guess, get to this point. It just means a lot to have a lot of guys there with me that were just, part of the grind, every day with me. So.
Well, you've had a lot of time up until this point. You've played, obviously, all the way through high school, through college. What does it mean to finally say, hey, I'm part of a major league, organization?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it means everything, really. You as a kid, you dream of making it to the major leagues, and now this is just the next step to getting to that point.
What do you know about the Chicago Cubs organization? How excited are you to be a part of that organization, and what are you looking forward to most?
Yeah, the thing I know most is probably, they play in one of the most historic fields in the league. So, that's exciting, just something to look forward to, playing at Wrigley Field. But, yeah, it's just taking it all in is just really exciting. But
What kind of player are the Cubs getting?
just a baseball savvy guy, goes out there every day. No matter what position I'm playing, just grinding out at bats for a full season. So
You don't get here by yourself. Your parents are both here. How much of an influence have they been on you?
yeah, they've been everything. Whether it be BP in a batting cage in our backyard, or just driving me to that extra travel ball tournament or extra little league practice. It just means a lot for everything that they've done to this point. So
Busy couple of months, wedding, and now you're drafted. Where does this rank in what you've done this year?
yeah.
I'm putting you on the spot, Anna.
Yeah, I'd say it's number one in baseball.
Yeah.
I'd say probably number two on the year. But yeah, it's a great thing so far this year.
I know I put him on the spot there. Yeah, he recently got married about a month before being drafted. So, yeah, quite a busy year so far for Cole. Again, honored to have been there. Glad to see he's going to the Chicago Cubs. Looking forward to covering him, hopefully, as he grows in his career and goes from single A, double A, triple A, all the way to the majors. So, yeah, it was a lot of fun to be there. And I have to say, you guys know I'm a collector, so glad to get the first Cole Mathis autograph, professional anyway. He signed it, Go Cubs Go. Go figure. That said, guys, we're going to be right back. We're going to answer all of your comments, so stay here with us. And again, if you'd like to leave any well wishes for Cole, please continue to do that. Really do appreciate it.
Are you ready to save big on a new GMC?
At Glenn Smith GMC in Opelika, you can own one of the best-selling vehicles in the USA. The GMC Sierra pickup is discounted up to $14,500 off. The roomy and comfortable GMC Terrains are up to $8,250 off. And the GMC Acadias with 3 spacious rows and seating for 7, discounted up to $8,000 off. At Glenn Smith GMC in Opelika,
Get ready to smile. Are you ready to save big on a new Chevrolet?
make your way to Glenn Smith Chevrolet. Choose America's #1 compact SUV, the Chevy Equinox, discounted up to $6,500 off. The powerful Chevy Silverados are up to $13,750 off. And the big Chevy Silverado 2500 HTs are discounted up to $6,000 off. Glenn Smith Chevrolet in Opelika.
Get ready to smile.
All right, guys, welcome back. Again, thank you for being here tonight. Really do appreciate it. Thank you for hanging around. Thank you for staying here for the comments section. Really do appreciate that as well. Remember, you can follow me on social media at Tyler Edmond TV on Twitter and Instagram. Would love to continue to follow each other there, and would love for you to continue to be a part of the On Deck community there as well. Let's go ahead and jump into the comments. That's what you guys are all waiting around for. Let's get into it. Corey Carter leads us off. He says, Tyler, please tell me how Finnegan made the team over Iglesias. Well, Finnegan, of course, somebody had to represent the Nationals, and somehow or another they had two. So it is what it is. Finnegan's had a good year, though. 2.45 ERA through 41 appearances, 40 innings pitched, 42 strikeouts. Ricel's had arguably a better year. He's got a 2.02 ERA, 35 innings pitched. I think it comes down to just the fact that it's the All-Star game and weird stuff happens at the All-Star game. They never seem to get it right. It's crazy to me that Marcell Ozuna was a reserve player. We can talk about that all night long, right? About how guys that should have made it didn't. Jesse Chavez, anybody? I'll die on that hill. So, as much as we can talk about guys that didn't make it, I think we just need to appreciate that, we had four guys make it. How many made it? Top of my head. Ronaldo, Chris Sale, Marcell, and Fried. So, yeah, four. 4 guys made it. So, it's not the 8 that we had last year, but it's still very well represented. Some teams only get 1, right? So, be happy with what we got. Matt Cox, I see your comment. You can't hear me well. I hope that has changed because we have now been going for 47 minutes. So if it hasn't, we have a problem. We have to re-record this whole show. Hopefully the technology figured itself out and we don't have to worry about it. Scooter Puff says, the week before the break was confusing. We split with Arizona and beat the Padres, and the Phillies sweep the Dodgers, then lose the series to Oakland. Sounds like the same stuff we did last year. Yeah, the 18-3 loss to Oakland is that was quite a that almost made my sportscast that night. I'm not gonna lie to you. I thought about just running that score for the hell of it, I guess, just to show it off to the world, I guess. I don't know. I ended up not doing it, but I really thought about it. Corey Carter says it feels like the Phillies and Braves have switched roles from last season. That's a fair point, to be honest with you, because the Phillies last year were this team that, couldn't quite put it all together, and that surely seems like the Braves right now. And the Braves were this unstoppable force that, frankly, I think were better than this year's Phillies because they just couldn't. I mean, the offensive side of the ball, you couldn't do anything with that team last year. They put up records that I don't think will be touched for a while, especially I don't think it'll be touched by the Phillies. As good as the Phillies are, it's really been more about them just winning games. Their pitching's been good. Their offense has been solid, but not compared to what the Braves were last year, I don't think. Let's see. Chess Burger says, let it go. The Braves are not beating the Phillies for the division or the playoffs. Better luck in 2025. Something tells me that Chess Burger is either a Phillies fan or just not a good Braves fan. I don't know, but I disagree with you. I don't know what else you want from me. Let's see. Nicholas C. says, I still want Kimbrel, even though he's not doing well. Yeah, that's an interesting take. I mean, I think we all have our favorites from over the years. Kimbrel, won the hearts of a lot of Braves fans. He's got a 2.80 ERA right now over 39 games. It's not bad. It's not what he did, in a Braves uniform, or really what he even did in a Boston uniform or even a Dodger uniform. I think his prime is definitely behind him, but he's found different ways to pitch and use his talents. He's not just blowing guys away anymore. But, yeah, I mean, we all are going to appreciate what Kimbrel did in a Braves uniform. I don't think there will be anybody, there's been anybody quite like him since in Atlanta. But, it's time moves on, right? Corey Carter says a lefty reliever and a left-handed outfielder. I'm not so big on the left-handed outfielder. I could care less. We got Eddie for that. But I've heard this clamoring for Cody Bellinger, and I'm going to put my foot down on that one because Cody Bellinger's making around $30 million a year for the next 3 years, and he's got 9 homers so far this year. It's not going to happen with Atlanta. It'll happen for somebody else probably, but not for Atlanta. Let's see. Losing Acuna, this is from Miguel Frica. Losing Acuna is a big loss because we don't have Freeman anymore. Lack of guys on low on-base percentage is killing this team. I don't disagree with that. The on-base percentage is definitely a problem, the ability to get on base. But again, to me, that can improve at the deadline with the additions that we went through, the Jazz Chisholms, the Taylor, well, really, let's go to the guys I actually think would improve it. Brent Rooker, Taylor Ward, maybe even a Kevin Pillar, Miguel Andujar maybe, and Luis Robert. Those guys I think could actually help the Braves with the on-base problem. And really, I think everybody needs to take a lesson from Ozuna, and the improvements he's made from a couple of years ago to now, right? I mean, he's not chasing as much, and because of that, his stats are way up. And hopefully a lot of guys can figure that out. One Ron says, if we just had some consistency this year, we wouldn't need to make any moves. Isn't Harris coming back next month? That's possible. You're talking about mid-August, maybe. The problem is we just don't know. They haven't really released anything. I looked today. I didn't see any update. Last I heard, he was hitting and he was doing something, throwing, but he wasn't running. They have not released him to sprint as far as I know. I will tell you that I'm actually going to the Sunday game this week against the Cardinals. Maybe that's something I can ask about. Maybe if I run into him in the clubhouse, maybe I can kind of touch base on how he's feeling. You know, and maybe I can update you next week. I don't know, but you know, until we get some kind of an update, it's just tough. It's just tough to say anything right now. Scooter Puff says Taylor Ward and Arozarena are the names that I like on that list. You know, I don't disagree with you. Taylor Ward really intrigues me, but to be honest with you, the other one I really like on that list, and I assume you're talking about the Jim Bowden list of Chisholm, Taylor Ward, Randy Arozarena, and Tommy Pham. Out of all of those, I like Taylor Ward, and outside of that, Brent Rooker and Luis Robert Jr. would be that. Those are your favorite picks, right? But to be honest with you, and a lot of you guys aren't going to like this, but if Alex Anthopoulos makes a deal, I'm going to do my best to look at it and say, okay, why does this help the Braves? I'm not going to look at it and try to pick it apart. I'm going to look at it and say, okay, what's the thought process? And typically anything he does, anything the Braves front office does makes sense. And a lot of you guys are going to disagree with that. I understand it, but hear what I'm saying. Compared to like the Angels, it's a massive difference, right? Compared to the Mets a couple of years ago, who were doing stupid moves that never made sense. Didn't make sense when the dude put his pen to the paper. Remember the Max Scherzer deal when he was 40 years old for $40 million, and Justin Verlander for $40 million, and all these big contracts? You remember all that? The Braves don't do that stupid stuff. They don't do it. And that's why, to be honest with you, as much as I'm a fan of the team, I'm a fan of the front office, because they're not doing stupid things to, they don't, how do I put this? They don't do anything to make you lose faith in their plan, right? The plan is straightforward. You know what they're doing. We all know what they're going to be going to get. We know they're going to get an outfielder, right? Whatever it may be, we understand the logic of it. And I think a lot of people, you know, have kind of turned on Alex Anthopoulos, you know, forgetting that this guy is pretty darn good at his job compared to the 29 other GMs in the game. So for me, and I don't mean to go on a rant there, I'm sorry, but like there's just this big contingency lately of folks that are against Alex Anthopoulos, and I don't understand it at all. Like every move that he's ever done, whether it worked out or not, made logical sense based on the team. So for me, Taylor Ward and Brent Rooker and Luis Robert Jr. make the most sense, but we'll see. Broglesby, which is a great name, by the way. Broglesby says, who would we give up for Jazz? Probably quite a bit. The Marlins are probably going to want pitching prospects. So, Darius Vines, Hurston Waldrop, AJ Smith-Shawver, Dylan Dodd, Bryce Elder, you know, maybe not even Bryce Elder. They're going to want some years of control. So, yeah, those guys, maybe a J.R. Ritchie, maybe a, you know, Owen Murphy, you know, guys like that who have years of control and have high potential and that kind of thing. But I think Nacho Alvarez could get a look. But really what you need to ask yourself, it's not so much what would we give up for Jazz, it's what's our trade pieces, period, right? Our best trade piece right now, if you ask me, is probably a Hurston Waldrop, right? He's been kept in AA, he's been kept healthy, and he's probably our best trade piece. Spencer Schwellenbach may be a trade piece, right? Especially if we're getting a starting pitcher. And if we don't get a starting pitcher, you also have to remind yourself, A.J. Smith-Shawver is on his way back too. But to me, as weak as we are in starting pitcher, if you're going to trade for a starting pitcher, you're going to need to get something back to fill that spot, right? If we trade Schwellenbach, you're going to want to get an Eric Fetty, right? That's what I'm kind of going for there. But we'll see. Scooter Puff says Drake Baldwin could be tempting for the Marlins because their catching situation is pretty yeesh at the moment. Yeah, you know, that's not a bad look. You know, Drake Baldwin could be that. He's not exactly Alex Jackson from a few years ago, who the Marlins actually traded for the Braves. But Alex Jackson, you know, he was a good talent. And I believe he was traded in that Adam Duvall trade, if I'm not mistaken. That's how we got Duvall. And their catching situation has not really improved since then. So yeah, maybe that very well could be the case. Matthew, oh geez, here we go. Tyler, there is no room for Fam in the Braves clubhouse. He is on record calling Ozzie Albies an idiot for signing his extension with the Braves. He punched Jock Peterson in the face. Actually, it was a slap, I'm pretty sure, just to be technical here. And he treats fans bad too. I didn't get into that because I just typically don't get into that, but I'm going to get into it since it was brought up in the chat. You brought this up, Matthew, not me. I agree with you. 110%. I do not want Tommy Pham around this Braves clubhouse because this Braves clubhouse, when you look at all of the clubhouses, all of the teams in Major League Baseball, I think this Braves clubhouse has something special that a lot of other ones don't. Some do. The Phillies clubhouse, to be honest with you, is very well maintained and has a good culture, and most do. But there's a few that don't, and that White Sox one is one. And you're going to have two types of players come out of there. You're going to have a player who is going to want to change his trajectory of his career by going to the Braves and maybe winning something. Or you're going to have a player who's like Tommy Pham. And I agree with you. I have to mention it because those are the players that are being mentioned. But with all of Tommy Pham's gifts and with all of the things that would attract you to Tommy Pham, his negatives certainly outweigh the positives, especially when he's not exactly having his best year this year. So yeah, I 100% agree with you. I addressed it and told you the reasons for it, but there are plenty of reasons to throw darts at the dartboard here. But at the end of the day, it's still a possibility. And can the Braves look that aside? Maybe, but you also got to think with him slapping Jock Peterson, he may not be the most liked player walking into that clubhouse. And that's pretty fair to me. I agree with you. But if it happens and I didn't say it, you all are going to say, oh, you didn't bring up Tommy Pham. So if it happens, it happens. But with as much emphasis as Alex Anthopoulos and Snit and the organization puts on the clubhouse culture, I don't think they're going to bring someone like Tommy Pham in. I could be wrong. You could be wrong. But I agree with you. Miguel Frica says, we need a player like Ellie De La Cruz. Well, yeah, that would be great, wouldn't it? The Braves team needs players who bring spark, enthusiasm, and leadership. They don't have any of these. Yes, they do. You are mistaken. Ellie De La Cruz is a great talent. Unfortunately, he's locked up with the Reds for quite a long time. In terms of a spark, they have that in Ronald Acuna. It's unfortunate what happened, but it's not like they weren't built to have that. I think Ozzie Albies does that. I think, Jared Kelenic has been quite a spark this year. I think Chris Sale has been quite a spark this year. I think they could use a Jock Peterson style player. I think that energy is missing. I don't disagree with you there. But I don't think an Ellie De La Cruz is necessarily the answer, even if we could get him. I think you need someone to add to the team, not necessarily be the front line of the team, right? I saw somebody, I think it was you, Miguel, say below that, Oakland is not good for don't have good players for championship in reference to Brent Rooker, referring to the inconsistency of Matt Olson this year and Sean Murphy. What you seem to forget is Olson had a record year last year. It's tough to match that up twice. It's not like he's having a terrible year this year. At some point, he's going to turn it on. And really, when you look at Olson's year, he's got 13 homers. If he has a 20-homer year, that's not bad, especially for what the Braves are paying him. It's not bad. I'm not saying it's great, but it's not bad. Johnny T says, oh, Jesus. I didn't even read it yet. I just saw the first sentence of this. This is not going to be good, but I have to read it. He paid me to, so just remember that. PSA for all the armchair GMs the next 2 weeks. Just because a trade is available for other teams doesn't mean it's available to us, like the video. Johnny T, I have never loved the super chat more. I appreciate that. To all of you armchair GMs out there, well, frankly, I'm an armchair GM, so it's not exactly fair for me to call anybody that. But I appreciate the super chat. Like he said, guys, like the video if you would. Subscribe to the channel. Really do appreciate it. Remember, super chats get you priority in the comments section. They get you moved to the front of the line, and they, of course, help the channel out. So if you would, please continue to do that. Continue to be a part of this organization, like I'm the Braves. A part of this channel. We would appreciate it. Thank you. And appreciate all you guys tuning in tonight. Scooter Puff had a great comment here. I almost missed it. Oakland has probably lost Double A's number over the last couple of years. Well, they got what's his, oh my God, the catcher. They got what's his name? Why am I losing it? Gosh, what's Oakland's catcher's name? Somebody help me. I've lost it. I'm sitting here laughing and joking. Gosh, it's like I know it. I know. I see his face. I cannot think of him. Oh my God, Shea Langoliers. Thank you. Jeez. Okay. Yeah. I mean, they got Shea Langoliers, right? I mean, they got Christian Pache at one time too. He didn't work out, but Oakland is Oakland, and I guess what I mean by that is Oakland is not exactly trading to win all the time. They're just trading to rebuild. And is that fair? No. Is it why they're moving out of Las Vegas? Probably. But you can bet that Brent Rooker wants to get out of there. You can bet money on that. I'm not going to point anybody out, but I've talked to a few of the guys that came from Oakland, and they were ready. And you can probably guess who they are. They were ready to go. Angelo says Rooker is going to the Phillies. That's interesting. Fetty is going to the Braves. I've been on the Eric Fetty thing from the jump. Pretty much since Strider got hurt, I started looking. The White Sox were the first team to kind of fall out. And I've been on Fetty. That was the first video we did on the year was Eric Fetty. I think, it is what it is, right? Like Eric Fetty is one of those that like, if you're trading with the White Sox for Luis Robert, right? Let's say we're trading with him and we're throwing in, just off top of my head here, Drake Baldwin, Nacho Alvarez, Hurston Waldrop, and, Chicago's like, well, I want so-and-so. It may be, okay, well, I'll give you so-and-so if you give me Eric Fetty, because then you just rebuilt your starting rotation, right? Your starting rotation will consist of Reynaldo Lopez, Max Fried, Charlie Morton, Chris Sale, and then Eric Fetty, which is a great full 5 starter rotation. That would be great. And I'm not saying Spencer Schwellenbach can't be that guy. I'm saying he's not that guy yet because his experience level is not there, and I don't know that I want his experience to come in the second half of the season. The other component of it is, what are you going to do if somebody else in the starting rotation gets hurt, right? That's where a lot of these people who are saying, we don't need a starter, we have starters. Okay, what happens when Charlie Morton blows his knee out? You heard it. What happens if somebody else gets hurt? So for me, it's a depth thing too, right? If you get Eric Fetty, you then have A.J. Smith-Shawver, Schwellenbach, Bryce Elder, all these guys in the minors ready to fill in if necessary. Ian Anderson even in the postseason. So I'm just saying it's a lot of guys that are just overlooking the starting rotation. Starting rotation is important too. I think Fetty is important, and I would stick by that. That was the first move I picked this year, and I think it's a big one. Let's see. A lot of you guys giving congrats to Cole Mathis. Appreciate that. Let's see. Jeff Nelson says, as long as we make the playoffs, we can get hot and take home another trophy. I agree with you, right? Like, but I also don't want it to be the Braves saying, yeah, we're just going to take a wild card spot. No, I want them to think they're going to win the division because I want them as hot as they'll be at the end of the year. That's kind of my take there. Wow, I did not expect this question. Is Guillermo Heredia available? That's a name I have not heard in a while. Sight for sore eyes, but a name I haven't heard in a while. I don't know if he's available. I think he's out of the big leagues. I want to say he's playing in the Dominican or something like that. But fond memories. I don't think he would really help us at this point. But yeah, fond memories. Great utility guy for sure. Harrison Richards. I knew a Harrison Richards at one point. I don't know if this is him or not. I played Little League with him. Bichette and Rooker, only ones we should look at. Yeah, I mean, I hear you on the Bichette. I mean, I think Orlando is definitely a weakness in the lineup. I don't deny that. I think Rooker is the one that I'm really intrigued with. Luis Robert, if you can't get Rooker, I think is a good follow-up. Bichette, it's a matter of are the Braves, are the Braves going back on the Orlando Arcia idea, which they may. It's not to say that they just won't do it, but I think that if you fix the other components of your lineup, Orlando Arcia will fix himself, right? You put him in the 9 hole, and all he's got to do is turn it over to the leadoff guy. I think you take the pressure off of him and that kind of thing. I see you guys trying to help me out with Langoliers' name. I could not figure out who that was. I saw his face in my head. I have met the guy. I could not come up with his name in my head to save my life. Corey Carter says, what? Oh, hitting in the Coliseum is like trying to hit a ball out of Yosemite. Yeah, the Coliseum is not exactly a hitter-friendly park. Guillermo is in Korea. I knew it was somewhere. I just wasn't sure where. Jeff Nelson says, I'm still holding out hope for Ian Anderson. That would be nice. I have reservations when it comes to Ian Anderson. It's not that I don't want him to do well. I certainly do. I just don't know that he can anymore because we haven't seen him in quite some time. When he was with us, he never could get past the 5th inning. And I just have concerns, and that's when he was fully healthy. Granted, he was younger. I'm just saying I have some reservations there. It's not that, I would love to see him do something, but I just don't know. Jeff Nelson says, we need Nakahoma for good mojo. It's funny you say that. Nakahoma, for those of you that don't know, Chief Nakahoma was a very good friend of mine. I have this sitting on my desk, a little teepee he made me. Many knickknacks around here are made by Chief. I have a whole corner over there with, frankly, Native American memorabilia and a picture of him and Hank that is signed and a picture of the teepee and all that stuff. Chief was a very good friend of mine, and I miss him I miss him every day. Miss hearing the stories. Miss being around him and Phil Necro. Those were some of my my favorite memories. Let's see. Johnny T says, I would love Bo. He's talking about Bo Bichette, but at what cost? Sad that I hear the Blue Jays are rebuilding. Well, we don't know that for sure. With an organization like that had so much promise a few years ago, you're right. It's sad if they do. You're talking about him, Vlad Guerrero Jr., Kevin Biggio a few years ago. They got Kevin Kiermaier there. You have a lot of good talent. Yusei Kikuchi is there. But at the same time, if it's not living up to what they want, I can't say I blame them because that's where we are in baseball right now. Unfortunately, they're not the Yankees, right? They can't just get the best free agents on the market and play them, or the Dodgers, right? They don't have that. They're not a small market team, but they're not in the Dodgers pay range. They're just not. So I get it. I think there's a lot of good players. If the Blue Jays do decide to fire sale like the White Sox probably will, you're going to have a lot of good players come off the books, and it'll be interesting to see where they all go. I expect this trade deadline to be more active than last year's trade deadline because last year you had a lot of teams that were holding out because they thought they could make the postseason because of the expanded postseason, which was true. I get that. But I think this year you're going to be kind of back to normal because you have the White Sox fire selling, you have the Marlins fire selling, and you maybe potentially will have the Blue Jays fire selling as well. And there's other teams that may, decide to do that too. Maybe not to that level, but to some degree. We'll see how it goes. Jeff Nelson says, I understand what you're saying about Ian Anderson. I held out too long on Mike Soroka. I think everybody held out for Mike Soroka, and I don't think we held out too long. He's doing okay this year. He's at least healthy. I haven't looked at his numbers lately, but I don't blame you for it. I don't think you're a bad baseball mind for it. You're talking about injuries. Injuries are weird, right? We don't know, right? We didn't know what we were going to get when we got Acuna back the first time. We don't know what we're going to get when we get him back the second time. Frankly, we don't know what we're going to get out of Spencer Strider when he comes back, right? The thing with Soroka was it was an injury that is so rare for a pitcher, especially, and the good news with Strider is this is something that we've seen before plenty of times, and potentially we'll rehab well and we'll be fine. But we'll see what happens. Scooter Puff says, does not matter how bad the Blue Jays are this year, we'll lose to them. We just can't seem to beat that team for whatever reason. Well, part of it, I don't know what the numbers are. Part of it is probably along the lines of the fact of the travel. That's why the West Coast always kind of kicks our tail. Even when we're better than those teams like Arizona, you got to think about those travel days. Luckily, we were able to beat the Padres in that final series, but travel's definitely affects it, in my opinion. But, I don't play the game like they do. Carlos says Jesse Winker, Kevin Pillar would be cheap in terms of prospect capital. Agreed. They have good on base percentage. Eric Fetty would be a nice addition as depth for the rotation. One goes down, and there goes the rotation. I completely agree with everything you just said. Jesse Winker is not a name we've talked about tonight, but it's a name we have talked about previously. He's a good veteran. He's proven he can play at a very high level when healthy and when on his game. So we'll see what happens. Eric Fetty is, again, the guy that I picked from the jump this year. As soon as Strider got hurt, as soon as we started having problems with our rotation, he was the guy that I thought that we needed to go get, and I will stick by that. I still think that that's the case. So all in all, what I'm looking at right now, when I look at this team, when I look at what we need, I still think starting rotation is a factor. There's no doubt about it in my mind. I'm actually about to drop a link to that Eric Fetty video from, when was that? 2 months ago? Yeah, 2 months ago. So I'm going to drop a link there in the chat for you guys that have not seen it. We didn't go in depth about Eric Fetty tonight, but that video will serve you well. Kevin Pillar, I like the idea a lot. I like Jesse Winker a lot too, Carlos. And really, I think that if none of these guys that I mentioned earlier, the Taylor Wards or the Brent Rookers or the Luis Robert Jr.'s happen, which, to be honest with you, may be unlikely because a lot of teams are going to be going for all three of those guys. The guys you mentioned, I think, work just fine. So, we'll see what happens. Harrison Richards says, what do you think about trading for Crochet and eventually paying him long term? I think we all know Max is gone. Well, Max, I wasn't going to talk about this, but I'm going to now. Max said, of course, this week, he was asked about, hey, you're a free agent at the end of the year. What are you thinking? And Max basically said, look, this is where I would love to be here. But again, we've heard that before. So I personally lean towards Max Fried is not coming back just because I have been burned in years past, and I'm sure you all can guess when that happened. So I'm a little bit cynical when it comes to that, and as are, I'm sure, a lot of you. I don't think Max is coming back. I could be wrong, but I would just be surprised. He's a West Coast guy. I would just be surprised. Pleasantly surprised, but surprised nonetheless. So in terms of Garrett Crochet, because that's what you asked me about, Garrett Crochet, great talent. It's wasted in Chicago with the White Sox. I would love to get him. I think it would take, no joke, our entire lineup for the White Sox to give him up to us. I think it would be astronomical of a price, at least the entire farm. It would be because that's who they're building around, right? When you look at their team, there's not a ton there that's locked up long term. I mean, even Luis Robert Jr., he's only locked up through 2026, and that might be their best offensive player. So, and I don't know for sure this year, but Luis Robert Jr. is certainly in that category. They just don't have a lot locked up, and you typically, if a team is smart, you build around starting pitching, and he's their best guy, right? Eric Fetty, the only reason I think that the Braves are going to trade for Eric Fetty or could trade for Eric Fetty is because he's only locked up through the end of 2026, right? They're going to try to get rid of him before he signs his way out of Chicago like Trevor Story did a few years ago, with the Rockies. So they're going to have to do something, but, I mean, it's going to be quite a package. I'm looking at it, what you're saying, Nacho, Elder, and Waldrop could work. I think Nacho and Waldrop are more along the lines. Elder is, frankly, kind of damaged goods at this point, and he's also doesn't have the years of control that the other two do. I think you're going to have to find somebody else, maybe a Schwellenbach, or maybe someone along those lines. It'll be interesting. I think Crochet would be great, but I think when you look at where we are right now, you just need a guy to fill that fifth spot. You don't need a number one starter, right? Crochet, great talent. Unfortunately, it's wasted in Chicago at the moment. I just don't think that we were going to do that when on the same exact team you have a much cheaper option in Eric Fetty. I would just be surprised. Again, if it happens, throw a party, blast of confetti because that is a phenomenal pickup. But I would just be surprised if the White Sox were willing to completely throw away what they have going, which isn't much, and Garrett Crochet is about all they got. I would just be surprised because think about this. When we rebuilt, when Atlanta rebuilt back in 2013, they traded away B.J. Upton, they traded away Justin Upton, they traded away Kimbrel, they traded away pretty much everybody that had any worth, they traded them away. And of course that started the 5-year rebuild, but there was one guy that the Braves did not let go anywhere, and it was Freddie Freeman. To me, Garrett Crochet seems to be their Freddie Freeman. And I could be wrong. They may not view it that way. You know, a lot of folks would view a position player to take that role better. But personally, that's what I think they have going for the most. Johnny T says, I would love for Max to be back, but I've already come to peace with myself that he's gone. LA changed the game with these back-end contracts and that amount. We will see more of that. Yeah, I'm not going to get into that rant tonight. I've done it too much this year. I'm going to probably pop a vein in my forehead if I get into that rant tonight. So I don't love it, but it is what it is. They're not the first to do it. They're just the first to do it to that level. Bobby Bonilla, celebrates his anniversary every year, and Shohei Ohtani will probably for the next 50 years, the way that contract is set up. But it is what it is. Harrison Richards says, I think it's a stretch, but it would be worth it if Max is gone. I mean, that's the thing, right? I think Eric Fetty, the reason I like Eric Fetty, I think you could get him fairly cheap at the deadline. Because if anything, the White Sox are going to be more concerned about trading Luis Robert, and Tommy Pham. I think Eric Fetty's kind of under the radar right now. He's had a very good year, but I think he is a trade piece for them. And I think Eric Fetty, with all of what he has, he has the ability to go right into your rotation, no problem. And really, the reason I like him is because he's a free agent at the end of next year. He's not a huge name. He's not a huge commitment, and I think that he could fill in nicely because ideally you lose either Max Fried or Charlie Morton, right? Let's say Charlie Morton is to retire at the end of the year and Max Fried decides, hey, I'm gonna come back. I'm gonna re-sign. Or you lose Max Fried to free agency and Charlie Morton says, I'm gonna come back for one more year. Then you only got one spot to fill. But in the possibility that you have two, to me it just seems like it would be much better to go into the offseason only needing one starting pitcher rather than two, because that's a huge price you got to pay, and frankly, not a ton of versatility there. You have to find two, whether it be within your organization or whether it be from without the organization. It is what it is. What about Flaherty? I like Flaherty. We didn't talk about starting pitchers tonight. We really focused primarily on outfielders tonight, because if I started talking about everybody, frankly, we'd be here for 3 hours. But with Flaherty, I like him. I think he's attainable. I don't know that his numbers are going to justify what they're going to want from us. I don't know that his numbers justify it, which granted I haven't looked at him in quite a while. He's getting a lot of attention now. I pointed him out a few months ago just because he is a veteran. I remember what he did to us in 2019. He absolutely roasted us alive. His numbers are a lot better than the last time I saw it. He's got a 3.13 ERA through 95 innings pitched. He is a lesser commitment too, so he's a free agent at the end of the year. So I would say between him and Fetty, I like Fetty more because he gives you that extra year of control in 2025 next year. So I like Flaherty. It's kind of like the Tommy Pham situation where, forget who Tommy Pham is, just listen to me, where with Tommy Pham, you're only committing to the end of this year and then you write him off and you never have talked to him again. Same thing with Flaherty. So it's a lesser commitment. You may not have to give up quite as much. Granted, if Detroit is trading him, they're going to want as much as they can get for him. They're going to negotiate. So it's all about where you can find the best deal. I think the best deal right now is if you can somehow strike and get both Luis Robert Jr. and Eric Fetty from the White Sox, or get Eric Fetty from the White Sox and get Brent Rooker. That's what I would want to do. But I'm not the GM. I'm just an armchair GM, as Johnny T said earlier. Jeff Nelson says, isn't he from Cleveland, Tennessee? He's talking about Jack Flaherty. Well, I just had his baseball reference page up. He was born in Burbank, California. I don't think he's from Cleveland, Tennessee. I think he played high school ball with Max Fried and a couple other guys. Yeah, So it is what it is, right? It's all about where AA can find the best deals. And I think really for me, I'm pretty much good with any of them outside of Tommy Pham. I'm pretty much good with just about any of them if it makes sense, right? Because not all of them do. And you can't go into it thinking, okay, well, I want this guy, but I don't want this guy, when the other guy is giving you just as good a stats for less money, right? Sure, he has better name value, sure, whatever the case may be. But that's just my take. It is what it is. I like the idea of Brent Rooker. I really do. I think he fits the lineup. I think he makes sense. And I think he's a guy you can put in right field every day. Which Tommy Pham feels like a Band-Aid on a boo-boo, right? It doesn't feel like it's going to fix it. And instead of putting a Band-Aid, just put a new guy out there and he's your guy. And I think Brent Rooker gives you that. I don't know that Tommy Pham does. I don't know that Jazz Chisholm does. And really, for me, it's between Kevin Pillar, Brent Rooker, or Luis Robert Jr. And really, it's between Brent Rooker and Luis Robert Jr. But again, I don't know that a month from now, when I see what happens at the trade deadline, I'm not going to go, man, Alex Anthopoulos just completely got this one over my head, completely caught me off guard. I very well may, and I'm completely okay with that. I live for those surprises. In 2021, I was caught way off guard. If you go back and watch that stream from back then, I was sitting there going, okay, well, we got Duvall, we got so-and-so, we got so-and-so. And all of a sudden, 5 minutes after the deadline, it's, Jorge Soler, Richard Rodriguez, and so-and-so, so-and-so. It was like, man, what? Bam, 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 bam. Right? I was watching MLB Network, and it was just one thing after the other, after the other, after the other. So I think we're honestly on the cusp of seeing something exactly like that. And I'm curious to see it. I'm curious to see how we go and how it goes about itself and how Alex Anthopoulos presents it and how it develops, because really that's what I live for when it comes to the trade deadline. I want to be surprised. I don't want it to be, hey guys, I think we're going to go get Brent Rooker, Luis Robert Jr., or so-and-so and so-and-so, and then it happens. I want Alex Anthopoulos to completely bewilder all of us. That's what I want. And not because it's illogical, but just because I didn't think he could do it. Right? And that's what happened in 21. And, we'll see if it happens again this year. But, we'll see. That said, guys, I think that's where we're going to wrap it up. To all of you that have watched tonight, we just went an hour 30. So I really appreciate you being here. The comment section really carried us here, and we really appreciate it. Appreciate all the super chat, Johnny T, the soul super chat from Johnny T. Appreciate that. Appreciate all you guys being here, and thank you for liking the video, subscribing to the channel, and hitting the bell for notifications. It really helps us get our channel out there further, get this to more Braves fans, and the more Braves fans we have, the better the content will be, and frankly, the better the conversations will be in the chat. So thank you very much for being here, and of course, one last time, just want to thank our sponsor, Glenn Smith Chevrolet GMC, our presenting sponsor, Glenn Smith Chevrolet GMC, there in Opelika. If you need a new vehicle, please check out our friends at Glenn Smith Chevrolet GMC. They are great folks over there. They support the channel. We support them, and we are so thankful for all they do for us. So again, thank you to Glenn Smith Chevrolet GMC. Thank you for watching tonight. And as always, guys, chop on, go Braves, whatever else sayings you want to put in there. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time right here at On Deck.
Baseball fans, make sure you like and share this video and subscribe to this channel. As always, thank you for your support.
54th pick of the 2024 MLB Draft, the Chicago Cubs select Cole.